Hey guys, I wanted to give you my honest thoughts on this game, the Tainted Grail, the Fall of Avalon. Kind of like an indie game, a Kickstarter game that came out recently. I got early access to it. I played the whole thing. I literally just beat it, and now I'm making this video. I'm gonna try to get it, out just shortly after the game launches now. And I have a lot of opinions on this game. I have a very, very strong opinion about a lot of things in this game. I'll try to keep spoilers as low as I can in this and generalize as much as possible in case you're someone who's an avid fan or really wants to know or something. I would, to experience the things yourselves. But there are some big issues, and there were some nice things to talk about, and I'll show some gameplay footage as I talk about it. The biggest positive to this game was it had that Skyrim vibe. You loot things, you pick up a ton of items, you can cook, you can make alchemy, you can do all this random stuff. You level up, you spend your skills, you get skill points. The skill points can be spent towards attributes, and there's like different, perks and things that you get as you level up, and it was fun. It was fun in that way. It was fun to just pick up random items forever, and just keep picking up apples and random things and eating them for health or selling them for money. Although it did quickly devolve into weapons are just the most valuable thing, and I just picked up weapons and nothing else, and then just kept moving. But it was fun. It was actually really fun in that way. I enjoyed that it felt like Skyrim. That was definitely the biggest selling point to this game. That was the most fun part of it. And then there was the combat, which surprisingly was actually kind of fun. It had some pros and cons. The cons were, in a lot of cases, there were enemies that are literally just standing still, waiting for you to walk up to them and either backstab them to start the fight, or just start the fight and start fighting them. And that was it. It didn't feel very organic feeling at all, the way that the engagements began in a lot of cases. But once you're actually fighting them, it was a really fun system just because there was this dashing system. And so it actually made you have to, at least in melee combat, like they come at you and you like dash back, dodge, come in, swing, or, back up and then dash in to swing before their next, depending on if they have fast or slow attacks. And there's different, mechanisms like that. And it was actually really fun. There were a ton of magical spells. There were like a skull you could summon. There are all sorts of stuff you could find. These spells you could find all over the world randomly. And for an early access game, there were a decent amount of them. I didn't even play with them very much, but it was fun to see how many there were. The mana was a little weird, though. The mana regen so slow that you basically had to eat items in order to cast spells, or just cast a spell once every on Blue Moon or something like that. But it was usable because it was decent and fun because you could make loadouts basically and swap between them. And that made it so you could just, whenever you did have mana, if you wanted, you could just swap weapons to the mana spell and cast it, go back to your main melee weapon. Or if you want, you could use a bow and arrow. I didn't use the bow and arrow like at all, but I could have used the bow and arrow, and I could have bought a bunch of arrows and used bows and arrows and longbows and things. I mean, it was an option for sure. Stealth was fun, but it wasn't fun enough. There was no stealing. Every single thing in this game, you just pick it up and it's not stealing. So you just walk into town and you walk up to the vendor and just take everything from in front of your face and then sell it to her. It's fine. You just do that. Which, honestly, surprisingly, didn't actually feel bad. It actually felt kind of fun. Just be like, just take it. I don't know where to steal. Just I want this, just pick it up. Like, it was kind of derpy, but it definitely actually did feel fun for some reason. But now we're going to get to some of the less fun parts of the game. So one of the things that was less fun was the map was way too small for a game like this. It really was not big at all. Like, you could run around, explore everything, and kill every single enemy in less than 10 hours, probably. Like, maybe 20 max, but I think like 10. But the enemies do respawn. But, you can still run around and explore every single place in like 10 hours, probably. It was very, very, very small. Extremely small. And the other negative with that is that came with interference with another game mechanic. So the story felt way too grandiose for how small the map was. You're on this little tiny map. You can run across from one side to the other in like 3 to 4 minutes or something. And then they're talking about the war that's coming and all these things or whatever, or wars that had happened. And you're like, there's a war that happened on this island where there's literally only like 100 people on it or something. We're talking about a war between, the 30 fighting age men against 30 fighting age men. They all die, and now the whole population dies off because there's nobody left who can have kids. Like, that it didn't feel right when the map was so small. And a lot of games, they'll do it where, they say all this stuff, but then the amount of NPCs don't even make sense. But the map feels big enough that you imagine it could fit. You know what I mean? In this one, you can't imagine that it could fit. At least not in the current iteration. And later on, this is early access. Later on, if they add it and there's a giant map, then the story could make more sense, maybe. But this story was relative to this part of the map. So even if they add more map, they're still talking about this part that you're on right now, and it would still feel kind of weird. So that was a big problem. That really crossed over hard into each other, and it, I don't know, caused interference between those game mechanics, and it was kind of an issue, and definitely took some fun out of it. And speaking of early access, there just wasn't enough to do. The game is early access. There was not enough to do yet. It was kind of fun. Was it worth the $30 price tag? Only if you want to support development, in my opinion. Like, I'm not a fan of the $30. I think $20 would have been right for what they have to offer. And it'd be like, if you really like this type of game, you pay $20 and you can have fun for a day or two. It's a reasonable price tag. It's definitely nothing that you can buy and then play for 100 hours. Like, that's literally impossible. I mean, you could, but there'd literally be nothing to do. I mean, you grind skills to 99 for no reason. Maybe prepping for Chapter 2 whenever that comes out, whatever the next part of the development. And then we have the biggest issue with the entire game. This was the number one worst thing about this game. And I'll try, I can do this without spoilers. Don't worry about this. Quests. Don't worry, no spoilers. Quests. Stuff happened all the time. Like, almost every quest where you're sitting there scratching your head going, wait, where do I go? Or they're like, go look behind this thing. And you're like, wait, where? Where do I go? And then I would like, okay, let me like load my game and do that again and listen again to every single word that they said. Maybe they'll tell me. In some cases, kind of they would. And in some cases, I'd be like, they literally would say, you'll find it behind this thing. And that's all they say. And you're like, what? Or they said it was, behind this thing at this place. And I'm like, I got no idea where this place is that they named. And then if you haven't already found it when exploring the map before this, then you're going to have to explore the entire map and find every single place and then open the map every time and see what the name of every single place is until you're like, here's the, I don't know, I'm just going to make it up, like Minotaur Temple. That's not even a thing. But, it'd be something like specific name like that. And you're like, oh, okay, I'm at the place. This is the one. Okay. Then you run around trying to find whatever it is without a marker or anything. That was a huge problem. Massive, massive problem. Oh, it was just infuriating. It was so bad. And if you skip text during any of these dialogues, it'll just make the problem 10 times worse. Which is another problem because the dialogues in a lot of these cases are so obnoxiously long that most people, are, especially me, are tempted to skip them. I mean, if you actually listen to all the dialogues, and we'll have some dialogues where if you just let it play out, we're talking like 10, 20 minutes of people talking. Like at least 5. But probably 5 to 10 of people just talking nonstop. And I'm sitting there like, oh my God, I just can't do it, man. We're just standing still, just looking at each other as they're talking. And it was like, holy God. So I end up skipping a lot, and you skip a lot, and you have no idea what's going on. Like, and they don't tell you. And the quest markers are like, sometimes there's quest markers that make sense, and sometimes there's just no quest marker, and you're like, I just gotta find it. I have no idea. And one pro with the story though is that there was a lot of player choice. There were things more towards the end where it's actually like you get to make these decisions. It didn't feel like it had any impact. I mean, actually, it did have impact, but nothing felt impactful in this game anyway. So it wasn't like you're really going to see the fruits of your decision. It was just kind of like, all right, it happened. Now we're just going this way, and that's it. It was like, I don't know. And then another con with the game. We're going to another con here. At least on my PC, my setup, I don't know, maybe you guys will see this too in other videos and things. It was so dark, man. It was so dark. I couldn't see anything. I would go, like, the whole world just feels not lit enough. It's not well lit enough. And even during the day, it's too dark. But then if you get to a place that's shadowy, good luck. It's pitch black. You cannot see anything. It is impossible. Like, I didn't feel like trying to turn gamma up on my monitor or anything. So I was like, I'll just try to run through it and ignore it. But, like, it was bad how dark and dim the game was. Like, the atmosphere, I get it. You're going for the certain atmosphere. But even when you're outside and it's extremely cloudy outside, it's still like 3 times brighter than this game is in real life. Like, that's how dim this game feels at all times. So it made it feel like this very dark, like hard to see. It felt like I was constantly in fog, even though there was no fog. Like, it was rough. And on that note, also the hardware requirements. I had a 1080 graphics card. I would recommend like a 3080 or something in order to play on the highest settings, probably. Like, I would get the FPS. My graphics card somehow give me the FPS, but it was completely maxed out at the same time. So I guess you can get by with the 1080. Realistically, you can get by with the 1080. You'll get the frame rate, but you might get stutters and random things with it. So highly recommend having a better graphics card specifically for this game. It was made in Unity, so I'm not even sure how any of that works. And that's another problem. My last year problem here, Unity. They should have gone with Unreal, man. If they had, I saw how big the team was in the credits. If they had that same team working in Unreal for all these years, I think they would have had like 6 times as much game. Unity is hard to work in compared to Unreal for making a game like this specifically. So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I don't think I am. I've used both a little bit, and Unity was insanely difficult to work with on precision stuff compared to Unreal. Anyway, yeah, so that was it, guys. I would give the game, like, in its current state, the game's like a 5 out of 10. Be honest. It has potential to be like a 7 or 8 out of 10. And if you just play a game for the mechanics and nothing else, then the game has the potential to be like 9 out of 10. Because like the Skyrim vibe and the way the combat is and stuff, like it could be really fun. But the story felt it was extremely high fantasy, or just fantasy. I don't know which one's which, but so maybe it's just because like, to me it makes it just feel like an LSD trip, and it was kind of crazy. But I don't know, like the story felt really out there and not correctly imbued into the game. And I don't know that that's fixable really, unless they completely redid it, which that would be insane for them to try to do. But if they polish everything else, and if the map was like 5 times bigger, and there was a lot more to do with mechanics and stuff, and finding things and reason to craft things, reason to do things, reason to play more, then yeah, it could be like a 9 out of 10 if you just are only playing for Skyrim mechanics and going and not stealing, but picking things up and selling things and crafting and killing enemies and stuff. Yeah, it could be fun. It'd be really fun. If you're really obsessed with story, it's either gonna work for you or it's gonna be terrible. But yeah, so as they make the game more, develop the game more, like in a year or two, and there's more areas and stuff, if they actually do that, this definitely could go from a 5 out of 10 to like an 8 out of 10 for sure. But in its current state, it's like, it's only if you look at it and you're like, this really speaks to you, then yes, go ahead. But at $30, it's got to speak to you, because it was, I mean, enemies were walking in the walls and things. Like it was kind of jank. It was very early. There's a decent amount for early access, but there's not enough for $30 of early access. So it's early access if you're already inclined to buy it and you want to support them and see it get developed more. Then yes, absolutely. If you just have no idea what this game is and you're just now watching this, it better speak to you, or you're gonna regret it, honestly. So that's my honest take. Hope that helps you out, guys. This has been my review. I got early access to it. I've beaten the whole game now. And that is my opinions on Tainted Grail, The Fall of Avalon.